The missing parents of Huey and Riley Freeman. A hidden conspiracy. There's always been something unsettling about the Boondocks. On the surface, it's satire. A cartoon about two kids and their grandfather navigating suburban life. But look closer, and there's a shadow hanging over every scene. Something unspoken. Something missing. Huey and Riley Freeman are just children, 10 and 8 years old. Yet, unlike most kids their age, their world feels unnaturally heavy. Huey speaks in the language of revolutionaries and secret wars. Riley moves like a boy who's seen survival up close. And through it all, their guardian, Robert Freeman, Granddad, never once talks about their parents. Not once. Not a name, not a memory, not even a slip. It's as if Huey and Riley's parents never existed at all. But that silence, that's the loudest clue of all. The hidden history. So we have a theory. What if Huey and Riley's parents weren't absent by chance, but erased? The theory is chilling. We believe their parents weren't just ordinary people. They were tied to something dangerous. A militant black liberation group, the kind of secretive force the government would rather wipe from the record than acknowledge. Something like the last remnants of the Black Panthers, or an underground movement still resisting in the shadows. If their parents were revolutionaries, organizers, or even operatives, it would explain everything. Why Granddad has custody, why the boys never speak of their mom or dad, why their entire existence feels like it's under surveillance. Seen, evidence that slips through the cracks. Huey's military-level skills. In It's Going Down and The Red Ball and Hateocracy and Or Die Trying, Huey displays combat skills, hacking abilities, and counter-surveillance knowledge no child should possess. It feels like training, something drilled into him early, or inherited from the life his parents lived. Riley's street logic. Despite growing up in Woodcrest, Riley mimics gang culture with eerie accuracy. He walks, talks, and schemes like a kid who's seen violence firsthand. Maybe this isn't just TV influence. Maybe it's fragments of a past he can't articulate. Granddad's nervous silence. In the episode, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? When family backgrounds come up when Crystal asked about them, Granddad looks nervous, giving little to no information. Across 4 seasons, he never drops a name, never tells a story, never even lets the boys wonder aloud about their parents. That's not forgetfulness. That's fear. But the darkest version of this theory is also the most believable. The inheritance slip. The very first episode might hold the most overlooked clue of all. When Granddad buys the house in Woodcrest, he casually tells the boys, "I spent all your inheritance on this place."
Y'all need to start appreciating your granddaddy. I went and spent your inheritance on this beautiful house in this neighborhood.
I went and spent your inheritance. I went and spent your inheritance.
Think about that. Inheritance. Children don't get an inheritance unless their parents are gone. Not divorced, not absent. Gone. Granddad didn't say, "I spent my money," or "your college fund." He said inheritance. That single word suggests Huey and Riley's parents are confirmed dead, or at least declared legally dead. And yet, the show never tells us how. No accident, no illness, not even a vague, "they passed away." Just silence. And silence is suspicious. Because if their parents were truly dead from something ordinary, there'd be no reason to hide it. This is the part where we theorize what might have happened to them. Let's start with the family's origin. The Freemans moved from the south side of Chicago to the predominantly white suburb of Woodcrest. A common fan theory suggests this move was to get the boys away from a dangerous and possibly politically motivated situation after their parents' deaths. Thematically consistent clues. The mural connects to the larger theory that the parents were black militants, mirroring the tragic assassinations of real-life black leaders like Fred Hampton, who was killed by law enforcement in Chicago. The Freemans' hasty move from Chicago to the white suburb of Woodcrest, funded by an inheritance from the deceased parents, also fits with the theory that Robert was trying to protect his grandsons from the same fate, and used their parents' inheritance to get out of Chicago and move into Woodcrest. But who's not to say Robert wasn't involved in the movement? Robert Freeman's own history in the civil rights movement, seen in the episode Return of the King. This establishes a family legacy of activism and struggle that would have been well known to government intelligence agencies. Just, he didn't meet the same fate as their parents did. He survived. Huey's namesake. Huey Freeman is named after Huey P. Newton, a co-founder of the Black Panther Party. This canonical fact is one of the strongest pieces of evidence that the show's creator, Aaron McGruder, intended for the family to have ties to black radicalism and activism. This theory suggests Huey and Riley's parents were politically involved and posed a threat to the establishment, leading to their targeted elimination by a government agency like the CIA. This is a believable theory because the show's creator, Aaron McGruder, often drew inspiration from actual events involving government surveillance and infiltration of radical groups. This theory could explain why Huey is a literal domestic terrorist at literally 10 years old. Because his parents were revolutionaries, which could explain why the government knows so much about Huey Freeman, a 10-year-old kid. They'd send a whole SWAT team to literally capture him if he comes close to exposing them. Now let's connect their deaths to Riley's behavior. Unlike Huey, who is more politically aware and revolutionary, Riley is focused on the street-level implications of what he witnessed. In this theory, Riley might not understand the full scope of the government conspiracy, but he would remember seeing the authorities as the direct instruments of his parents' deaths. This makes his hatred of the cops intensely personal and visceral. His no snitching rule would be a learned behavior from this traumatic event, a defensive mechanism to never again trust or cooperate with the same forces that took his parents. Although his parents' death was never revealed, we believe this is what happened to them. It shapes up perfectly with the show's history. Now that we know all this, think about all of this. Huey Freeman is named after Huey P. Newton, a Black Panther leader assassinated under COINTELPRO. And the Freemans moved from Chicago, the same city where Fred Hampton, another Panther leader, was killed in his sleep during a police raid. 2 people was killed in that raid, 2 cities, 2 erasures, and in the Boondocks, 2 missing parents. That's not coincidence. That's history repeating itself, hidden in plain sight. And if the government really did erase their parents, that means one question remains. How long before they come for the Freemans, too? But there's one question. Why wouldn't Granddad just talk to them about the truth? About the government erasing their parents? It's almost like there's someone forcing him to be quiet. And there's only one person powerful enough to scare Granddad into staying quiet. And that person is the one who owns their house, Id Wunsler. The forced move to Woodcrest. Wunsler could have used his power to arrange a deal with Robert. He would provide financial security for Robert and his orphaned grandsons, but only if they moved to the Wunsler-controlled suburb of Woodcrest. By bringing them into his own domain, Wunsler could more easily monitor the Freemans and prevent Huey and Riley from discovering the truth. Granddad's suppressed knowledge. This theory would explain Granddad's often nervous and pragmatic nature when dealing with Wunsler. While he's willing to scheme and cause trouble, he knows the unspoken rules of the game and seems to recognize Wunsler's supreme and potentially deadly authority. Remember how friendly Robert was trying to be to Ed in episode 1? That could explain why Huey and Riley literally tried to kill him in the first episode. They know he has something to do with their parents' disappearance, and that he has control over them. So they tried to erase him in order to gain resources to everything. But Granddad stops them, knowing the consequences of their actions.
Huey!
But let me ask you this. What could Robert be so scared of if they found out? Avoiding radicalization. Granddad might believe that revealing the truth would drive Huey to a point of no return, pushing him toward a violent revolutionary path that would only lead to his own death. Or the revelation would confirm Huey's most paranoid theories. His anti-government stance would no longer be just a philosophical position, but a personal vendetta. This could drive him to take extreme, dangerous action, potentially putting himself and his family in even greater danger. Now how about Riley? Riley's worldview is defined by loyalty and keeping it real.
You can tell me.
You promise not to tell?
I promise. I swear on your life.
You lying. That's messed up, Granddad.
If he discovered the truth, Riley might feel a profound sense of betrayal. He sees Granddad as a protector. And learning that he failed to protect his parents and then hid the truth, it would destroy his core belief system. This took a lot to make. We would try and figure out who they were. We wish we could identify them. But the show or comics gives us basically no clues to who they could be. We can make a part 2 if we figure more out. But thank you all so much for watching. See you next time.